Meet Ben Van Hook, a neurodivergent graduate student attending George Mason University in Washington, D.C. Working toward a master's degree in public policy, Ben also works full-time at the Organization for Autism Research, supporting other neurodivergent students.
So I think that going into policy and influencing policy is just a good fit for me, and I also embrace the Nothing Without Us About Us movement, where we need more neurodivergent individuals helping out with policy and helping out with supporting the neurodivergent community and collaborating with neurotypicals in doing so.
At just 6 years old, Ben was diagnosed with autism. He remembers the struggles he's had to overcome.
One of them was my slowness in developing fine and gross motor skills. So I was really slow when it came to spoken language, when it came to crawling, when it came to initially walking. But I also had difficulty with communication and conversation. I found eye contact really difficult from an early age, and I also had these really niche areas in countries, flags, capitals, and United States presidents, and it was hard to kind of talk about anything outside of those areas for me. So I was taken in to get a formal assessment.
Ben didn't always live in the United States. His multiple identities merged when he was adopted from China by an American family in Northern Virginia.
Yep, it was in Harbin, China. I was less than a year old, and I was abandoned by my biological parents in this train station with the hope that someone would pick me up and help me get to a better life. So I was eventually picked up, taken to an orphanage in Harbin, China, where I was taken home by someone who worked there, and she kind of fostered me, and then I was eventually adopted a year later.
Not only was Ben raised in a white household, he was also immersed into a different religion.
My adoptive mother was Jewish, my adoptive father was Christian. But I was raised Jewish. I went to Hebrew school, and I went to synagogue every Sunday for Sunday school classes, and we also went Friday night for Shabbat services. So I was raised Jewish in a Jewish household.
At school, Ben faced language and learning challenges while also dealing with discrimination as an Asian American and neurodiverse student.
It was definitely a lot, and I think I was learning 3 languages at once. In elementary school, I was learning English, I was learning Mandarin Chinese, and I was also learning Hebrew. So it was kind of hard to learn all of those languages all at once because of the way my mind worked and processed information. I also found that like when one of my identities wasn't attacked, another one was. So if someone wasn't making comments about me being Jewish, there was people who made racist or discriminatory remarks about my Asian American ethnicity. So it was really emotionally isolating, and I just felt like it was a difficult time.
Ben uses his experiences to support others like him.
I thought self-acceptance was the first step towards healing and towards helping other people in my position have a better educational experience.
Ben now spends his spare time volunteering to support other neurodivergent students on his campus.
So I wanted to positively affect change in our community when it came to neurodivergent policy and neurodivergent policy reform. I wanted to give back to my community and make sure that the future generations have it easier than we currently have right now.
What were some of the specific challenges you experienced in the education system as a neurodiverse student?
One of the challenges I faced was that a lot of times I found the teachers didn't really understand me, so one of the changes I do want to make is having a neurodiversity, like including neurodiversity in teacher training when it comes to having the teacher pipeline. I also think having a peer mentor in school is really helpful.
Ben has also formed helpful ways to navigate social settings, as sometimes these can also be a challenge. Ben attended college at Mercyhurst University in Pennsylvania, which has a program specifically supporting students with autism.
The program is called the Autism Initiative at Mercyhurst, or the AIM program. And one of the best things that they did for me was they launched my advocacy career. During my junior and senior year, even my sophomore year, they took me and several other students to New York City and to Washington, D.C. to advocate for autism. Off-campus trips really helped, not only the networking bit, but it also helped us develop soft skills. We learned how to manage our time because we also had classes we had to study for in between. We also learned how to use public transportation, how to budget. We learned how to dress appropriately and how to show up on time for these meetings.
Despite numerous challenges, how are you able to grow your confidence?
I think one of the biggest changes was that I began to accept and appreciate who I was. And I think that self-acceptance really gave me more confidence when it came to talking about my identities. I think it is good that people think of me as a confident and strong individual, but I also think that I hope that it doesn't become a stereotype of all neurodivergence because we're all really different.
So do you think it was even more challenging for you than for someone who is dealing with only neurodiversity?
I think there's a strong intersectionality between race and neurodiversity, and that people who are both neurodivergent and of a racial minority, I think there are challenges they face that one wouldn't face if they were in just one of those identity groups.
Did you experience any of the racism that increased against Asians during the pandemic?
So I didn't personally see it, but I was watching the news every single day. I was scared, and the reason I didn't see it was because I was staying indoors all the time. I was afraid to go out shopping. I was afraid to hang out with friends in public, and I was afraid to go back to school. I decided to spend my first semester senior year online at home because I was afraid of going back to Pennsylvania, which is a really purple state, in the middle of a spike in hate crimes against Asian Americans.
With discrimination inside and outside of the classroom, how do you see more inclusion for neurodiverse people in the workplace?
I think the more communication and the more knowledge that's shared about neurodiversity throughout the workplace, the better. And it will improve retention because of that allyship and people knowing that neurodiverse needs are going to be heard. And it will also improve hiring because neurodivergents can talk about what parts of the hiring process were difficult for them, what can be reformed for other neurodivergents in the future.
For a world of difference, I'm Mabel Jong.